Okay, that should be live. Let's fit my Mac in the right place. Audio look okay. Not too quiet, not too loud. There we go. Okay. Day number 2 of water, drink water. So I'm gonna do 2 streams a week on this and 3 streams minimum on regular app. I think that's a good balance because it gives us time if there's anything other to work on, if there's people that want to contribute anything once we get going, that balance will play out. Yeah, I need to get some commands or something in the stream for bringing info on that, but I'll work on that separately. I'll get an instance of the bot running that will do that for us. So yesterday, continued working on. I continued working on the regular app, so I didn't do anything else beyond what we'd stubbed out here, and what we'd come to the conclusion of was that we would kind of dump everything in services for now so that we could make a refactor later, and that way we didn't have too much in the way of structure, and it gives us a good opportunity later to do that refactoring. So Rav, good morning. Hope you're well. How are things doing? So, kind of. Morning, Essa. How are you doing? Watching 2 puppies on my sofa, just seeing if they settle down. They're currently jumping on each other. I feel a little bit discombobulated today, so forgive me if I'm slightly off. Everyone fasten your seatbelts, we're going to fly. Well, that would be the hope, right? Okay, so yeah, yesterday we decided that what we would do is we'll create services for everything right now. So we'll create maybe we'll create a account service, and then we'll put the pieces in it, and then yeah, I'm trying to think about what I looked at yesterday after the stream, what you posted, and other things I looked at that got me thinking about some of this. Thorolf, good morning or good afternoon. Hope you're well. Hope your day is coming to a rapid conclusion, and one more day down. So yeah, what we said is what we do is we create basically services at this level, right? We'll create like accounts service, right? Nice. Work from home is good. So we'll create a bunch of services in here. That will give us the opportunity to put all the things in. We won't run to Mediator straight away, and then we have the opportunity to do a refactor and a reorganize later, while still keeping the code in a relatively clean state. Unit testing. Do we want to start with TDD? Right? Do we want to explore that? Should we follow that path, or do we want to get application code written? Right? That's another question. I can do TDD, but that will mean a little bit of slowness to get to the application, and fewer, not really fewer lessons. The refactoring will be supported, so it won't be terrible. But I just want to make sure that everyone is on board for doing that, because obviously it does take us that little bit more time and could create a lot more discussion and opinion. So I suppose it depends on what you're after with this application stack. So we'll create services at the application level. We'll create a data context. We'll create the database. I'm deliberately not creating this right this second for this exact question, the unit testing question. If we start with unit tests, we're not doing this until we actually explore the unit tests. I saw some strong opinions on unit tests yesterday, which I didn't wholly agree with, in terms of slowing you down or whatever. Oh man. Okay. So I mean, at some point we're going to want to do tests. So let's at least create a folder, tests. Let's create. Let's do it. I don't need to. I still need to try property. I've only done it for toy examples. Okay, so let's go through it. Let's see if you feel this is reasonable. So proper TDD is hard. I wouldn't say I don't think you ever master it necessarily. I think you just get very good at doing it the way you do it. So the essence of TDD obviously is that you should not write a line of code unless it's tested. You should test first, the whole red-green refactor thing, right? Create a list of tests. That's one thing that I know that Dota said that he's not particularly strong at the other day. So let's do it this way. That's application tests, and this is actually in the tests directory. Right. Okay. So let's start with, okay, we want to register an account, right? So unit tests are very good in terms of firming up your vocabulary, your understanding of what's actually going to happen. They are not good if you start rushing ahead and making assumptions, right? If you're going to do TDD, you've got to let yourself trust the process. You cannot let yourself, oh, I know I need this. I know I need this. The moment you start doing that, you just get into that habit of doing it, and you'll never actually, fall out of that habit. It's very easy to just justify, oh, I'll just copy and paste this, I'll move this here. Yep, I know I need this, I know I need this, I know I need this. So you've got to validate at least that decision or get into that habit of validating. So let's say this way. So we've already determined, right, that as a participant, I want to be able to register an account. That is I mean, this is a potential participant, right? As a new user, I want to be able to register an account, right? The use case here is someone wants to sign up and actually start tracking their water usage. That's the simple use case. I'm not getting into personas. I'm not getting into the whole let's write out a very detailed description for the use case. I think we get why in this instance, right? A more detailed explanation of the use case would normally benefit from a story, right? But I'm registering an account, so let's start with the most simple. So when registering account, right? Let's start with that piece. Unit tests are something you should be unafraid to delete. So bad tests should be removed. They should not be left in there just because they are tests and they do add some green lights on your application. It's okay to reflect back and change your tests in terms of, oh, that test isn't actually as good as I wanted it to be. Let's make this do this and this and this, right? It's okay to do that because, again, you're exploring the application. And one thing you should do is make sure that your unit tests are as good in their coding as the actual code you're writing. So I think it's Uncle Bob that says treat it as production code. So I'm going to start with a really, really weak case, right? We need Visual Studio. We'll have to get the unit test running inside of GitHub pretty quick if we're going to make this a shared project, so I'm not too worried about that. And then we need Microsoft Test SDK. Yeah, you need all those tools in place to run the actual tests. Okay, so let's create a fact. So so this comes down to style, right? So if I start with my style and we reflect back on it, then we can discuss further, right? So rather than sit here and wait and see if people have opinions on what style they want to follow, how they want to do it, try and walk me through an actual language description of how to test. Let's do it one way. And then what we can do is once we get the app underway, people can commit tests in their style, right? Maybe rewrite a test in a style or add a new test in a different style just to demonstrate the differences. And that way we can compare and contrast, right? So I'm not opposed to changing up how unit testing works and following a different standard. But once we decide upon a standard, then we have to document that standard and go forward with that standard in this project. Because inconsistent unit testing means that you are going to end up with lack of trust, right? Because if I write it one way, you write it a different way, I might not trust your method for its thoroughness. You might not trust my method for its thoroughness. We might just assume that the other one's got it and then leave it out and make a gap. So it's very important to agree upon a standard within a team. There's all sorts of different styles of unit testing. There's all sorts of different methods and opinions on how it should be done. Okay, so let's make some decisions. Validating the information that's going to be entered into the account, that's going to be a component of this account, right? So we need to make sure that we can't register an account with no email or an invalid email. So when registering an account with an invalid email, let's start there, right? Because this kind of gets into that, right? Fact, result is conflict, right? So there's a few different ways of using this test library. I don't like using one way, but there is a way of doing this, right? So what I can do is I can actually feed data into this, right? Which allows me to show what is invalid. That is an actual case, right? Because this is very nondescript, really, right? What is an invalid email? Well, an invalid email is an empty one or one that is not formatted correctly, right? So the problem with this style is, I think it's this way. Is it this way? Parameters, remove the parameters. There's a way of doing this, and I never use it, so, but it is worth it. Creating parameterized tests, inline data, fact. Oh yeah, okay. Oh, does it tell it when Oh, I have to make it a theory, that's why. Right, if I make it a theory, this can have a parameter, right? And then this is invalid art. It knows. Oh, because I've said it's a string, right? That's fine, right? So you can do it this way. That helps document what this means. Now the problem with this way is this doesn't fit with my other way, right? So it conflicts. Because my arrange act stuff doesn't work here because you have to do the arrange and act in here. Right. Also, what else was I going to say then? I'm going to say something else then. Yeah, this format doesn't. So when registering an account, you might say when email is invalid, or should return invalid conflict when email is invalid, right? So this would become this again, right? I don't like the word should, right? And my struggle with this style is that it basically forces you to do the arrange act assert all inside of a single test. It also creates visual clutter, right? The actual assertion is right at the bottom of this method, and if there's a whole load of stuff to set up here, then that is difficult, right? So I'm open to thoughts. If you're writing unit tests, how do you do it? What are your opinions? If you've seen my style unit testing so far, do you agree, disagree, like, dislike? Would you prefer I went this path and explore this path for the purpose of learning? I'm open to opinions. I don't really have an opinion. That's fair. What style do you follow when you are writing tests? So you said you don't really, you need to try proper TDD, but it doesn't say you don't do tests. Do you have any particular style there to it? With an invalid email address returns conflict. So naming wise, Sarav, you go with an invalid email returns conflict. Okay, maybe method name is when registering email is invalid returns conflict, or when email is invalid returns conflict. By the way, style is good. So let's follow this path. Let's see if we like this, right? Let's go down this. I use a freestyle, but my C++ unit test framework does not have as many features as XUnit. Gotcha. Okay. So when registering email is invalid, returns conflict. Yeah. So generally, what I try to do is say this is the thing that I'm doing, and the scenario, right? So what I would do is when registering an account and email is invalid, right? I might go that path because then the test is configured to be defining what is invalid and then the requirements of that test. This style, right? We have theory public void returns conflict when password get out of my way is empty, right? We wouldn't make this nullable, so this is an invalid test. Our code tells us this, right? So you've got to be careful that you don't introduce documentation in your test that dictate something that actually can't be happening, right? You don't want to use tests, pardon me, you don't want to use tests to document what you think could happen. You want to document what is possible and what is going to come into that method, right? So we could actually put validation before this account service, right? Which we probably should, You can put all tests regarding registering an account. Yes, with this style, all the tests for that go inside of here, right? So you end up with one file with many tests in it. But again, what you'll see is, and I'm going to follow down this path, by the way. I'm going to follow this. What you'll see is the visual clutter makes it a little harder to, I mean, you have to rely upon this. I still will not put should in here because it either is or it isn't. You get a green or a red light. You don't get I'm hoping it does this, right? That's not what you're after when you're writing unit tests. You're after confirmation. You're after, oh yeah, it should work. Right? So I always think of should as kind of hedging your bets, right? It's not, I mean, it's basically, here's my expectation, right? So I understand the word should does not necessarily mean I hope it works. But yeah, we can put all the tests in here. We will do it for this one. But again, what we want to document here is we don't want to do oh, I'm going to proceed. We'll see the challenges, right? But what I want to figure out first is, okay, what do I actually want? So I'm registering an account. I've been asked to say, okay, I want a name, an email, password, right? And I cannot have email is unique and should request and reject an account if registering the same email. So this is a test, right? Password/confirm. I don't believe that is a service layer concern. I think that password/confirm is an API layer concern, and it doesn't proceed to this if the confirmation doesn't match the password. I don't feel that we pass forward a confirm. Good morning, Dota. How are you doing? Here's someone who'll have some opinions. Got too into Path of Exile again this morning. Oh no. No. I have been, I don't know if I think I said it yesterday, my gaming PC is covered up under boxes and things like that right now because I am really trying to focus on my software development. So I'm making sure I can't actually use my gaming PC very easily. So I haven't cleaned the desk off. I just stacked boxes of stuff from Christmas there. Yeah, we're getting into unit testing. We're trying to talk about a little bit of TDD. So what we're going to do with this application is we're going to kind of create things as services to begin with. We're not going to follow the whole mediator pattern. No, but compiling on a gaming PC is so nice. Well, this machine isn't a slouch. So it's a 5800X, plenty of memory and a good graphics card. So this could be a gaming PC if I wanted it to be, right? Morning, Canny. Or good afternoon. I saw beginner.net get into Ardalis's GitHub. Sort of funny, sort of the wrong repository. Yeah. Yeah, all my PCs are gaming grade, kind of capable. This is still the weakest PC, so. Or maybe not. Actually, no. There's a 9900K with a 7700 XT. That's probably the weakest one. That's the living room game PC. Yeah. SSDs help. I saw beginning. So why were they going into, like, you're getting started with .NET and you're going to go into our Darcy's GitHub with so much reflection, generics? That's a hard challenge. Have you ever done performance related analysis? Performance related. I'm trying to get to RAM benchmarking. Whew, no, not like that. Not benchmarking actual hardware. It was a disaster. I can imagine. Yeah, yeah. I mean, if they're an experienced developer, but new in .NET, maybe. But eh. Okay, so oh well, sometimes you have to learn, right? You're going to learn through pain, or you're going to learn through finding people that can help guide you, right? One of the things I have actually contemplated is offering um, mentoring, or at least like office hours sort of behavior, where people can come and chat, and we can jump in a Discord and go through stuff. I don't know how to gate that or how to promote that properly, but that is something I've considered, because I think there is a lot of stuff to learn, and some of those, hey, can you look at this code, what do you think about it, and do that coaching stuff. Yeah, I think I may lack some of the patience needed for coaching, etc. I don't think I lack the patience. I lack some of the confidence, I think. Like I'm streaming what I'm doing, but I'm not always well, I'm always nervous. Because the imposter syndrome ramps up a million times when I'm streaming. I don't know how you'd find the pupils. This stream tends to attract strong devs. It does, yes. For good or bad, right? It does build the potential for a community that is extremely good at helping each other, which is really where I want to end up anyway, right? But again, it would be good if I could figure out, because I think it would be useful for people, right? If I could find people that did want to have some mentoring, that aren't, but how to balance that, because it would be sort of I think it would kind of be an office hours, hey, schedule the call, and sit in a chat, either one-on-one or as a group, and kind of look at stuff, not streaming, so it's not public and whatnot. But that has, so yeah. I've lost my patience for it. I used to really enjoy teaching others, but after being around talented dead people for so long, I've lost my ability to teach. Or you've lost your ability, or you lost your confidence in being able to teach because you feel that you're not as strong as others. Anyway, that's a diversion. Testing. So I'm going to follow a pattern here of trying to test these things this way. I'm trying to build the valid list here, but because this is not my normal style, this is going to be a little bit of a struggle for me at least. But because I'm flipping it on its head a little bit from my perspective, I'm trying to figure out, how do I write this list of tests effectively so that I'm not writing any code yet. Right, so we'll return conflict when password is empty, right? So no, inline data, right? I wouldn't start with theories. Told you have an opinion. Last few times I tried to teach absolute basics, I failed miserably. My conclusion is also that teaching programming is super difficult. I think that probably there are more people like me these days than there are people who are book smart, right? So teaching people like me was incredibly frustrating for most of my teachers, right? Because I do not learn by being told. You cannot tell me, I mean, if you've ever tried to tell me something in this stream, you will have noticed that the only thing that actually settles it in my head is if I do it, right? So you have to demonstrate. And it's actually how I ended up doing a lot of stuff with other people when I was working with .NET, at my first job in the US. The other developers weren't that strong in .NET, but they wanted to learn some of the principles. So what I'd do is I'd write little programs for them, and I'd document them extensively. And then we'd sit down and walk through them, right? So they could tinker with them and they could actually plug things in. So, yeah. Well, I agree. I think I genuinely believe that programming should be apprenticeship, but there's a lot of stuff, yeah. But I think it's better to write a bunch of tests than theorize them. Teachers don't need to be all-star devs either to teach basics. No, no. So the reason we started this conversation, Delta, is because obviously I don't necessarily just want to jump to my style of testing. I want to discuss, we're kind of trying to start off with some deliberate missteps in our application structure, right? So we're going to start with creating services. So we're kind of, okay, let's go to what do we test to start with, right? And forcing ourselves to be, starting with these. So I got into, okay, well, describing what is invalid. Schooling is amazing for getting to learn about concepts, maths, etc. Yeah. When the password is empty, right? These are theories. But I also was discussing just before you came in, like when password is empty, is this something we should even allow at this level? Because we're in application here, right? Right. So we don't want to document lies. And if we write a test, we're documenting that it can happen. So you don't want to document features that aren't valid. So this is not even, that's not correct. Writing it's empty. We would never get an empty email here. That's our assumption. We can safely assume that because we'll make sure that that can't happen, right? For right now. We can come back on the language. Why it's let that word in, I have no idea. Oh, there's a bug. I'll write a tester on it, kind of thing. Of all the it flagged FKN yesterday, but it doesn't flag that word. Interesting, Twitch. Zombies. You focus on zombies. I don't think I've guided by zombies. Let's have a look. I'm not part of what if zombies could help you build code that does exactly what you think it's supposed to do? What if zombies helped you build a test harness that can keep your code clean and behaving as expected for a long and useful life? Zombies can help. I'm not talking about Legion of Undead or Virus Stricken. Zombies is an acronym that helps you, the engineer, decide where to start, what tests to write next, and make sure that, to the best of your ability, you do not forget critical tests and production code behaviors. The acronym stands for 0, 1, many, boundary behaviors, interface definition, exercise exceptional behavior, simple scenarios, simple solutions. And I have to sign up. Do you see the video? Well, to say S is unimportant, simple scenarios, simple solutions. Single responsibility, all your lovely solid principles are guided along by that. So, morning Apex. This, right? So they all solid zombies. We can keep coming up with acronyms, but realistically, it's like stop trying to dump everything in one place. But that's there because simple scenarios. You don't want to keep it. You don't want to get complicated. Okay, let's discuss what we're trying to do here for the purpose of anyone coming into the stream, right? Right. We need to register an account. Right. That's our goal. An account should have a name, which is our name, email, a password. It does not have confirmed password at this level. We're not allowing that to go beyond the API layer. So we do not need to worry about that here. Right? And that's it. Right? Name, email, and password. That's the story definition. Name, email, password. Right? Things we know. Right? Name is required. Email is required. Password is required. The email must be unique. Right? These are things we know right this second based upon our discussion with our PM and yeah, it was a very long and drawn out discussion with lots of argument, right? So these are facts. We know these are necessary, right? I'm trying to. What I'm trying to do is sort out reality from just making stuff up to build an example out, right? This reminds me of a really funny programming blog a colleague suggested. A Grug brain developer, excerpt. Grug brain developer not so smart, but Grug brain developer programmed many long year and learned some things, although mostly still confused. And apex predator of Grug is complexity. Complexity bad. There's some anti-TDD stuff in there too, if I remember it. I haven't seen that one. I think I might have been sent one, but yeah. Okay, I will check it out. But either way, my point, what I'm trying to do here is determine how would I really write this versus what am I going to do for the purpose of this application. I'm now confusing myself because of the way I'm trying to build this so that it will help guide people, right? I don't want to start off with the advanced stuff, right? I want to start off with building the application as a simpler application that is chained together, not with wrong principles, because we're going to start with the testing, but at least with something that is easy to follow and visualize, and then we can refactor and change that as we go. Well, everybody has opinions, right? If you trust everybody that has an opinion, well, the world would be a very different place, right? Some people like TDD, some people hate TDD, some people are in the middle of it, and often what it is experience, right? If I've had a bad experience with TDD and it's taken me ages to write, then it's going to be anti-TDD sentiment, right? Because it just seemed difficult. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't useful. It just maybe the person showing it wasn't able to demonstrate it properly, or maybe I wasn't able to hit that. Because I think if I'm demonstrating this badly, that's my fault, right? But when you hit the aha moment, right, the light bulb comes on, which we have, right, this one, right. When that light bulb comes on, it's like, yeah, there we go. I figure it out now. Then this becomes a lot easier to pick up. I do hate discussing TDD because a few people I've discussed it fully with haven't properly tried it. And I wouldn't say I've mastered anything, right? Yeah, I just keep trying. I keep practicing. I keep making sure I have tests. I keep trying to test to validate that they are actually doing something useful, right? After writing the test, it becomes clear what you need to do. And if you're having trouble writing a test, you know there's something wrong with what you're testing, too much dependency, too much complexity, structures that do not comply with solid, etc. Absolutely, yes. And the arguments are usually misconceptions. So you're arguing about the existence of something that isn't real. Right. Therefore, TDD is necessary both in this respect and in terms of maintaining sustainability in order to easily retest the places you've refactored. TDD saves lives. Good TDD. Because we can do bad TDD if we want to, right? But I'm too undisciplined to go all in TDD. It's even rare for me to do tests in hobby projects. Yeah. And it's easy to skip the practice, right? It's easy to not do these tests. I can proceed and write this code, and I'm pretty confident in what and basically what we have to write, that I can write that code and it will work fine first time. I don't need to write any tests. But it's when I go to change that code, that's the measure, right? When I go to change that code, do I find the bugs, or do I find myself keep chasing things down that I've introduced because I didn't think about the knock-on impact, right? If you have those tests from the beginning, you have, and that's what I'm trying to build towards here, is the fact that we have a foundation on which to refactor to our other code style later on. And we can leave the tests in place for the most part with little change. I don't understand how people write code without writing tests simultaneously. Going backwards and writing tests seems like madness to me. It's better than nothing, right? And again, you've practiced that discipline. You've got to that point now, and even now, you'll look back to 6 months ago and go, "Oh, why did I do it that way?" Right? Because you have evolved as a person. You've evolved as a developer. You've got better at doing those things, right? And it's better than nothing to have tests that back up what you've done, right? Writing tests as part of general workflow is greater than making special occasions to write tests. Exactly, tests are super valuable. I always wish I did write tests, but I never learn. Well, write something, get it wrong, improve on it. There's no right answer, right? You're not going to get to anywhere unless you try. Don't expect perfection straight away, right? Very few devs would say not to have any tests, and few make them jump from I want tests to how to get them. I did tests after the fact. I think that ends up happening when you are learning a new technology. I mean, yeah, Apex just went through what was quite a fascinating journey. So he spent weeks writing some behavior trees in Godot, which were fascinating to watch, by the way. I would recommend dropping in his stream. And got to a point where it was like, I think I kind of prompted, hey, unit tests or whatever. And he chose to actually go off and pick up the framework and started building unit tests around his behavior trees, which then he spends the next couple of days streaming, writing the unit tests, and starts cutting stuff out of the behavior trees and realizing that the tests now pass. Apex. Right. Sorry, my keyboard is a small Logitech keyboard to the right, so typing is really awkward, right? So I do recommend dropping in on Apex from time to time. I spend all day there when I can. But again, it backfilled what he understood of that code, right? And it helped him remove pieces that he didn't need and didn't know he didn't need until he actually started to test, and then he started to reflect back on what he was doing. So tests after the fact, yes, not perfect, but it's better than nothing, and it will help you grow. To do that, but my perspective is that in a world where you don't control timelines, it can be difficult to do it the right way. Yeah. Yeah, agree. Workflow, building that discipline in your personal stuff is going to help, because it will help build the discipline, right? So anyway, as we continue the discussion, feel free. I love the fact that we've had a couple of days now of some really solid discussions around things, and it is good for people to be present in this conversation, right? Because it does help. You know, don't get me wrong. I'm glad I have the test harness now, and I wish I put it in from the start. Right, and next time you will probably build it much quicker, right? And you'll look back on those tests in a couple of months' time and you'll go, ugh, why did I do it that way? I can change that mock, I can change this thing, I can fix this, yeah. You're taking on quite a lot of learning, but your behavior trees are going to get better for it. So to go a little bit more zen on this, right? So at karate, right? Our goal is our black belt, right? That's our goal, right? Our goal is we start a white belt and we become a black belt. And they often say it and they actually look at an old black belt And if they open it up, it's actually a white belt inside, right? So they say that a black belt is just a white belt that persevered, right? They are still learning, they are still growing, but they've just done it for longer, right? So the black belt is just a measure of time. It's not, or a measure of commitment to the actual task. It's not any different than that white belt. They just know a lot more because they've followed a journey, right? So the purpose is, right, the purpose of what I'm saying that is because I don't believe I'm perfect. And I think in my description for the stream, right, I love that. So corny, but still really good. It is, and it makes sense. It does help, right? In my stream, I say I'm a developer. I may not be the best, but I just want to continue trying to be better, right? I don't care if you come in the stream and think, oh, this guy has no idea what he's talking about, right? Don't watch, right? If you don't agree with what I'm saying, if you don't agree with what I'm doing, don't watch. If you think you can help me get better and in turn help others get better because they're watching as well, share. That's my entire purpose. I don't care about being wrong. I care about learning and growing and saying, oh yeah, that's a better way of doing that. Testing frameworks, but they do make you write better code, harder to learn. Yeah. Well, learning testing is learning a discipline, right? Learning frameworks or languages is just learning how the things stick together, right? It's like Lego. I can build Lego, right? I know how to build a nice house out of Lego. Am I really good at it? Can I build a Death Star? Can I build an Empire State Building? Absolutely not. Can I build a ball? That's actually a test they give the Lego, whatever they're called, the master builders or whatever they're called in the Lego store. They actually make them test on can you build a ball without seeing how it's built. I learned that yesterday. So unit testing is kind of the refinement of the art, right? It's not just using the tools, it's using the tools and then applying new techniques and methods and keep practicing those things. Uh-oh, S is pointing out some more. There goes Dota. For Dota, I think learning links are kind of like, here, there's a stick, go, go get that. Okay, to the point of what I was saying before is, I don't think this is actually as complicated, and Dota actually did say it, right? Let's just worry about registering an account, right? We know these are going to get passed in. We should validate these before we get into this, right? One way or another, right? And in this first version, we're going to make the API validate it, and we'll learn, right? So let's make it simple. And it's better to make an application simple from the start than it is to make it more complicated and overthink it, right? And that's kind of what unit testing is meant to do. It's meant to make you think about what you're doing, right? I still need to make that resource page. Yeah. Yeah. So these are required. They're going to get passed in, right? So the only one we actually have to worry about right now is email unique. So let's go and do that. When registering an account, and email is not, email is, unique is a concept. Right. Let's think about it in the way that we might describe that to somebody else, right? We might say, okay, well, I'm registering an account, email's not been used before, right? So let's go from that perspective, right? Our fact is returns. We want to validate that no account is created, no account is registered. Again, trying to make sure that I'm following the wordage that I would use if I'm talking to somebody, not if I'm, you don't want to get technical, right? You want to try and avoid technical terms. inserted, deleted, removed. Deleted is one that often overlaps, but inserted versus created or registered, they often are. Right. The class I usually do is the given. So you would do given. How would you write that? I'm entertaining it because I want to make sure that we're discussing it and looking at the different styles, right? I don't mind in my stuff. I'm following my standard, right? No account is registered. The problem here is conflict is returned, right? That's going to be the technical challenge, right? Because we need to validate that we return the right result, but that is a technical concern, not an actual concern, right? Yeah, you should know that just by reading the test names, preferably. Nothing worse than having to decode over complicated tests. Yes. So the language matters here very much, right? This is a style that I generally follow. So I'm describing what I'm doing and the thing that I'm validating in the same sentence, right? When I'm registering an account and the email has not been used before, right, or not been used. Right? And it's also why I don't like arrange actor cert inside of an actual test, because it makes clutter. Registered test 23. Yeah, that would be a problem. Yeah, given an account has an email and the email has not been used. So we've already determined that the password. Sorry, the email is not optional at this point. We're going to have an email, right? So, so given an account and email has this is the negative case, the not been used, right? We're gonna go happy path first, not the necessarily negative path, because the negative path requires checking. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna write a unit test that says, hey, we registered the account. Then we're gonna write an alternate unit test that says it has been used and verify that it fails because it inserts it still, right? Yep. But that's the path we're gonna follow. We're gonna follow this. We're not gonna run ahead of ourselves, right? That's the purpose of doing this, right? I know that test is coming, and I know that test is going to fail. I'm not going to write it right now. Hi, I'm a student still learning programming and was curious and stopped by. Well, welcome, Serendipity. This application is a new application we're building on stream. It is. I do not have buttons for YouTube yet, so it is available. It will be available. There. I gotta go work soon. Good luck all. Thank you, Dota. Thank you for stopping by. Appreciate the input as always. Take care. Yes, Serendipity. We're building this app deliberately for stream. We're going through some of these pieces bit by bit, and yeah. If you have any thoughts, opinions, or questions, please feel free to join in. I stream on Twitch and YouTube every day from 7 to 9 Eastern, which, even though my accent doesn't suggest it, I am actually East Coast US. Which confuses a lot of people, apparently. Yes, I'm live on Twitch as well. I dual stream. So today I actually did try I had tried adding more tags to the YouTube stream to see if it got anybody else because I don't understand how people find this stream on YouTube. It seems like a mystic art form of trying to get the stream out there on YouTube. Okay, so given an account and email has not been used. So the key difference in the way that we're terming these right this second, right? When registering an account and email has not been used, this implies a behavior, right? This is an account, right? So I have no intent. I have no intent here. What am I doing? Right? I have an account. Well, I don't have an account because the email. I only have an account when this happens. So think about the subtle difference that those two things say, right? This is an act I am doing and a state of the data. This is a thing that we call in the database an account and an estate, right? So it's important to kind of differentiate between those two things, right? So, and again, it's why when it comes to the testing, I don't care which style we land on, as long as we're consistent in how we do it, right? And yeah. So, hi Amal, how you doing? Good day. I hope you're well. We'll register the account first and try to register the same account again, yeah. Yep. Well, in this case, we'll set up the pieces, right? Again, we're not trying to rush ahead of ourselves, right? We're trying to just validate. So no account is registered. So so we need some things is a challenge here, right? We are determining uniqueness in email has not been used in both these scenarios. The difference is this just popped up on my recommendations while watching some vids, just saying thank you Serendipity. It is useful to know that YouTube is actually trying to prompt this to people, and they're not search, because I want to know the difference between searching for the things and actually being just prompted. So YouTube is obviously recommending this video, you know. So yeah, I hope you stick around. You know, if you like what you're seeing, yeah, feel free to contribute or ask questions as we go. Just had water, now ready for listen. Nice. Water's important. I have my bottle down beside me. Unicus, good morning. How are you doing? Okay, so we'll proceed with this style for this second. I am completely open to other options. Okay, feel free to contribute, feel free to comment. I did create a thread in the Discord. Discord is linked in both YouTube and Twitch, in the panels or in the links. Feel free to drop in. I created a topic channel in Discord for discussion on this. So if you have opinions or thoughts or whatever you want to share on things we do about this project, feel free. Okay, let's get to writing some code. So the problem with unit testing is you start with nothing, right? So you have to kind of make it up as you go along. And this kind of fits well with the way I like writing code, because it kind of helps me define the API as I go sometimes. I actually get to think about what I'm doing, right? And yeah, so I'm gonna follow the arrange act assert inside of a test for right this second, and then we'll come back. Sometimes you get weird recommendations. In the weekend, I got recommended a 12-view coursework introduction from some UK college. Poor students were being taught to code in Nano. Well, if you can code after that, then you're good, right? I have an idea. To do this, we must first write a service, and there must be method in the service. Afterwards, we will mock the service we will write, and I think we will run the script. We can do it like this. We write a fake service that implements the service we will write for testing. Then we keep the account in a list as a repository and test the process. True. Yeah. We must first have an idea. To do this, we must first write a service. Yeah, yeah. We write a fake service that implements the service we will write for testing. I'm not sure I've followed them. We'll keep the account in a list as a repository and test the process. Yeah, we can mock out everything. Regarding unit tests, will it be possible to write the unit test for program/startup classes? Will it be possible? That's not easy. Writing unit tests for the startup of the application would require you to have an immense number of mocks, and it will constantly break as you add more pieces to the application. That really is covered by your integration test. So if you have an integration test that spools up the application and create and posts an API endpoint or gets an API endpoint and retrieves the right information, that is normally your indication that your startup is working fine, right? Because you can validate the application started up and it returned my data. So that is more of an integration test concern than a unit test necessarily. And unit test frameworks are often used for integration tests, but in that instance, I think that would be a more specific framework that you wanted to use for that sort of stuff. I mean, you could kind of try and write around program CS. I would just advise against it because it would mean constant changes. Are you worried about something specific there, Amal? So we're right for testing the work. Yeah. I'm going to continue, Essa, and see if we align on this, right? So our system under test here, right? So we need to do an arrange, right? We're going to have var, let's do SUT equals new account service, right? Our act is going to be, we call register. And then we're going to take our, yeah, let's do that. We're not doing confirmation inside of here. Nothing specific, just asking in general. Yeah, no worries. Does that make sense though? Are you comfortable with that as an answer? Right. Again, we'll say what we're going to assume right now, and it's okay to make some assumptions, right? As you backfill the application, you can verify where those assumptions are happening and add right testing. But right now, we're going to make some solid assumptions that we have validated that we have a name, we have an email, we have a password. Those things are going to get passed to this method, right? We do not need to check that they're empty. We do not need to check that that the password matches in any way. We do not need to check that it is a valid email. It is a valid email, right? And we just need to validate that, yeah. So now our assert should be what? Our assert should be able to say, and this is where we're going to get into some real challenges very quickly. I know this. There's a reason why going with other frameworks was easier. I remember this now. What we need to say is, did we add an account? Yeah. Copilot is driving me nuts because it's prompting me and it's gonna make me think in the wrong direction at some point, right? So for that, we're going to need a data store of some form, right? Now we get into a bit of a mess here because we're going to use entity framework. There's no doubt about that at this point. We're going to use SQL Server. We've already stated that. But when you get to entity framework, unit testing and entity framework go together like oil and water, right? Because you're unit testing a database structure. The only way of effectively unit testing it is to use an in-memory database, but even that isn't effective unit testing because it doesn't do the same thing as it would do in SQL. So all you can validate is that you are going to make the calls and your query structure looks correct for what you've got, right? The actual query that will get executed is never tested when using unit testing. I do want to look at test containers in the near future, which would do more integration testing, because then we can spool up a database, migrate it, create the test data, and then run these tests against an actual database. But that's a long way away, right? So the challenge in the meantime is, do I jump through hoops trying to get SQL Server? And this is oftentimes going to be the sticking point for unit tests. This is the thing that people look at and say, it takes so long to get started with unit testing. Right? You got to do so much stuff and you don't get any code written, right? Agree. Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a repository. And this is going to be new, it's going to be substitute for an account repository. Right? And we're going to feed that into here. Right? And then what we're going to say is repository dot received dot add it arg dot is account. Yeah, that'll work. And x dot name equals name. Right. Password we're not testing. Right. We're going to test and not string dot is nor empty x dot password. Right. We should make sure we insert something, but we're gonna one-way encrypt that. So I actually learned about test fixtures over the weekend and how to set them up in XUnit. Yeah, test fixtures are yes, test fixtures are how you would do more of an integration test. Absolutely. They have their own quirks that, yeah, I'm not a big fan of using test fixtures, or especially for regular unit testing. For integration testing, yeah, I can see how test fixtures would help, but they do have their own challenges. I have tried to use them before. I just realized my camera went off and is not showing my dogs. Yeah. Happily sleeping. Okay, so this is what we want to write, and what we're verifying is actually has not been used. Account is registered. My test assumption is incorrect. I was going down one path and followed a different one, right? Success is returned. So you are testing that the service did call the repo. Yes, we're going to verify that we called add. Right? That's what we're going to go for. So none of this code exists, right? This is all the fun parts, right? So let's add end substitute. So end substitute is a mocking framework. I personally prefer it these days, and actually having used it now, I actually really do prefer it over MockU. But MockU made some poor choices in their or the developer of MockU made some poor choices, and yeah, there was a lot of background dependency injection happening that I didn't fully understand. Yeah. Yeah. NSub was really made learning unit testing in C# faster. Yeah, it does. Substitute is good. Thought this was going in the other direction, and when you try to register an account and email is not set, then the account is not created. Yeah, so that's why I was kind of going the best case here. Yeah, no worries, Bex. I was going the we have validated beforehand. What is the advantage of nsub over instantiating your mock manually? Instantiating your mock manually. So to manually create this, I'd actually have to create a fake of that account repository, right? So and substitute is a good for what it does is it underneath it creates a mock class. It creates a proxy class. That's the right word, a proxy class, and then you can tell it which calls you want to implement, right? So here I will have an add method on my account repository. Yeah, it creates it all for you. It actually creates a proxy object for you off an interface, right? And I actually learned Apex was doing this for his stuff. You can actually do partial mocks, so you can actually put this onto a class and substitute certain methods so that it will use the actual implementation of some methods, but then you can mock other methods. So if you have something that changes something, you can mock that method to validate that you called it rather than actually having it mutate it, but then everything else is real. So there's quite a lot of power in there. A lot of less work, and sub, fake it easy, mock, they create proxy classes very easy, yeah. And then you can inspect what happened in the call instead of actually writing all that, yeah. So here what I'm saying is, okay, I received a call to add and the argument looked like this, right? That's what we're going to verify. So I'm going to validate that when I created an account service and I called register on the account service, that I called add on this repository and I passed it the right parameters, right? The only reason we're going with this repository pattern right this second is because it makes unit testing far simpler. Okay, so let's start to stub this out. Also, what I want to validate here is, so this gets into my style is mixing here a little bit, right? Because now, if I want to do this one, account is registered, that validates that is registered, right? We are documenting here that this is what registration means. We have an account, right? If there was other side effects, if there's other things that happen, again, we are documenting in our unit test here, this is what registered means. The fun part is finding one of the mocking frameworks that gives you a syntax that is easy to follow. Yeah. MockU, I like this. I like end substitute because it does actually give you this, right? I can actually call this the thing that I'm using it for and pass it in and it reads correctly, right? With MockU, the MockU syntax looks like this. Var repo equals new mock I account repository, right? And then you pass in repo.object, right? So I kind of like this syntax. And this is much cleaner in end substitute I've found so far. Fake easy to, yeah, I'll have to have a look at that one. I haven't had a look. Sorry, I just got a text I need to. The horrible part about being a husband and a father in an American school system is when you get a text that says, we're on lockdown, and it wasn't scheduled. My God, I really need tooling like this in C++. Someday we too will have reflection. You're right, a fake and things like a call must have happened. Okay, nice. I will. Maybe we'll do a mocks and fakes stream. Because it's funny, if I create an instance of this, right, my fake repository, right, then that's a fake. But if I let a mocking framework create it, it's a mock. Okay, so let's create the things we need. Right, so now let's go back and make this work. And oh, that's where I was going. To do it this way, I actually have to copy all this, paste that in here, and my assertion is that assert true result dot is success. So this is partially why I don't like doing the arrange at assert, because you copy and paste and now this adds noise. Okay. Let's create our interface. This will have for right now, add account. Create a type account, and it will have, yep, those work. We know it's going in the database, so let's put an ID on there. There are some edge cases where you will want to create an actual dummy class to help the mock. A good example is testing HTTP clients. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, now let's create our account service. Takes a repository. And has a method called register. Yep, that works. And we need a... So what I normally do is I stop in here at the point at which I need to include a NuGet package. The reason being that if I include the NuGet package in here, again, I'm also documenting that I need the NuGet package. I mean, I do know I need it, but again, it's a pause point, right? It's a point at which I've got too much in here that I can't proceed without making a mess, right? So let's move these around now. Okay. So let's move this to data / models. Yeah. Let's move this to data / contracts. Yeah, it's fine. Right. Let's move this to application / services. Right. Now let's reference this. Again, we're going with this whole kind of n-tier. We're not going to put mediator in here right now. We're not going to do any of that. We're just going to do the basics. Let's add our $result. Executive decision. There are other result libraries, I'm pretty certain. I'm actually not unsure that the .NET framework is starting to add that pattern in anyway, so there might actually be one built in at this point. Right? So now we can reference that, we can reference that, we can do that, we can reference account, and we should be able to build, right? Can we run? Right, again, this is an important part. We want to make sure that we are able to run so that we are getting what we expect as the failures, right? Method operation is not implemented. Method operation is not implemented. We are calling the things and we're getting errors. That is as expected, right? This operation is not implemented is exactly what we expect, because when we call add, we know that it's not implemented, right? No, when we call register, sorry, it's not implemented, right? Sorry, my bad there, right? Actually, this is what's throwing. So let's now make it pass. Primary constructor is okay. Yeah. Okay, so repository.add new account, name equals name, email equals email, password equals password. Right? Return result.success. Let's run our unit tests. Hey, we have a pass. Right? We have implemented the bare minimum amount of code to get it to pass. We're not overthinking it. We're not rushing ahead. There's all sorts of things that I've just done wrong that I know I've done wrong, but we get a pass. We've firmed up our structure. We've validated that things run. We've only written the code we needed to write, and we now have something to build upon. So that's where we need to be. So when registering an account and email has been used, right? Fact, account is not registered. Actually, let's make things a little easier on ourselves. Let's create a global usings. Let's go in here, cut all that out, paste that in there, and make that global usings. That will make everything easier from a testing perspective, because we don't have to keep repeating all those usings. The usings are going to be common anyway, especially being that we've got this focus to this specific piece, right? So in this case, we want to validate the account is not registered. We want to return conflict is returned. Okay, gotta get ready for work. Hope I can catch the rest when I get there. Yep, no worries, Junicus. Thank you for coming and hanging out. So again, we get into this pattern. We need to arrange. So yeah, we need our repository. Now this is where Copilot's going to save us some time. I don't want to copy and paste. If I copy and paste, I end up potentially copying in the wrong thing and getting a pass for the wrong reason. So I want to validate that the code I'm writing is doing what I'm expecting it to do. Right, so my system under test is my account service. My act is registering, right? My assertion is that I should not receive any account, right? Copilot is helping me there, but that's okay. This is actually what I want to validate, right? So I'm not copying and pasting it and potentially copying in some incorrect information. If you're new to the stream, by the way, if you're just joining us, this is a project that is going to be open sourced. Well, it is open source. I'm going to push up everything. Right now I'm doing everything on main, so there's no branching, but we will get there. Okay. Sorry. This is a community project. If you have any thoughts or opinions on what I'm doing, feel free to share. Feel free to contribute your knowledge, your experience. If you're new to programming, if you're new to software development in general, and you're kind of curious as to why I'm writing something or whatever, please ask. There's no assumption that you have a knowledge level. There's just, obviously, we're writing code that is not normal to a lot of people, but I'm more than happy to stop and explain things if need be about what we're doing. And if you want further information, the Discord is linked in the panels below, and you're more than welcome to join Discord and come and hang out and ask further questions. If you're on YouTube, sorry, I'm trying to do the social media thing, right? I've got to do this sort of stuff if I want to keep promoting the stream, etc. If you're on YouTube, then leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, all those fun things that come with self-promotion on social media. But putting those likes on the videos in YouTube, adding comments if you have any thoughts or opinions on what has actually gone by, they help promote those videos up and get more people viewing those things. So I don't like the self-promotion aspect, but I understand that if I want to help share this information with other people, I've got to push that content, right? So Connor, thank you very much for the follow. Hope you're well. Welcome. So again, our range, So it's defaulting to assert is because I normally put just my assertions in my tests. I'm writing them in a different way for today, and we can review that. So I need a repository, I need a system and a test, I need to act. The act is to do that. My assertion is that I get failed, and it's not failed. I think there is a state that is, it's just not success. So I'm asserting that success is false here, right? Okay, so we want to run this, and it's going to fail, right? Does it fail because expected to receive no calls matching, right? Actually received one matching call. Okay, so it failed for the reason we expected. If it doesn't fail for the reason you expect, you have to make sure it fails for the reason you expect first before you proceed. Otherwise, you're going to fix it and potentially fix it in the wrong way, right? So you want to validate that piece. Okay, so how do I fix this, right? I need to be able to ask no problem. Thanks for doing the stream. Just came upon your stream about 2 minutes ago. I work in data engineering, but thought I might be able to learn more new things here. Nice. Yeah. I mean, you're welcome. Stick around. Again, the purpose of the stream is not one of me getting something done. The purpose is this particular project is deliberately for the community. It is fully open sourced on my TBD friends GitHub organization. Yeah. So the code will be fully available for that one. I'm going to work 2 days a week on this and 3 days a week on an actual platform I'm building. And on that project, I do a lot more of this sort of stuff and build in a bit of a larger scale and starting to grow that application out. Yeah. There's no wrong question. There's no, hey, I haven't been doing this for very long. I don't know what I'm doing, so I won't contribute. Don't feel in any way intimidated. I've actually had some feedback that the stream is kind of advanced, and therefore some people don't necessarily feel comfortable joining in. I've heard that a few places now, which concerns me because it's not what I'm aiming to do. Okay, so we have a failure. Do we have a failure in the right direction? That's where I was going, right? And then we do. We actually expected to receive no call to add, and we do. So how do we fix that now, right? Well, there's no other test we can write because we'll be testing a fake because we still want to focus on this account service. So what we need to be able to do is retrieve an account and validate that it exists already. So in here, we will need a, let's do, yeah, that works. Thank you, Copilot, right? We'll retrieve an account by email, and if it's there, we'll return not null, right? So in our substitute now, before we actually do that, we want to say, oh dear. Okay. Now, I'm not just blindly following what Copilot tells me. Right? Copilot is actually helping me here because it is doing exactly what I would have done. So I'm just using it to get us further forward. It's kind of like if I was presenting a video on this, right? I'd actually want to do this sort of stuff where it's quicker for me to do it. Right? So what I'm saying here is if I call get by email on this repository, I'm going to return this object. Right? The ID doesn't really matter right this second for this test. So I'm not going to add in more information that I don't need. I'm just going to make sure I add something. And actually, that doesn't matter, if we're being honest, right? And again, documenting something, right? I don't need to mock that data out at all. I just need to return non-null. right? So for the purpose of this test, that's all I need, right? So I call register, and this is still going to fail because obviously now my repository is not doing that. So I go in here now, right? And I say var account equals repository to get by email. And then if no account is not null, return conflict. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So now if I run my tests, do they pass? Account is not registered, conflict is returned. His success is false, but I returned a conflict. Huh? So what does conflict return? Right? So maybe I need to be a bit more explicit about what I'm testing. Assert equal, right? A result status dot conflict result dot status. Sorry, let's test that now. No, I got OK. I returned conflict. Huh. Okay. Maybe I should go look at my code. var account repository get by email account is not null. So what am I doing differently? Oh yeah, I'm not returning my account in here. Right? I gotta make sure I do that. So I've got to copy and paste that code. Right? So that would have worked. It would have been non-success, but it's probably better to be more explicit anyway, right? So we now have an account service that will, if given a repository, will actually insert an account. What else do I need to test? So we know that we want to store a password, right? We know we don't want to store the string password, right? How do we validate that in these things, right? So here we're validating that we can add an account, and we're validating that we can, you know, that this still functions, right? So we've written the code we need for these pieces. How do we term this? Because again, when registering an account, and password is set, right? That seems like a bit of a weird test because the wording, I don't have an option of setting a password. So how do I test around that is a challenge here, right? And genuinely thinking through it. I'm not trying to play a game of, oh, look at me, I know exactly what I'm doing here. I'm trying to think through this as well. I need a reason for the test to exist. I need a valid description. What I'm ultimately trying to say is, okay, I want to test that the password was encrypted, some basic encryption, right? We should have a one-way encryption of the password so that we can, given the same password, when registering an account, password, because the way I'm writing these tests is the actual test here is going to dictate what I'm trying to describe, right? So with this. String account, password. So we'll go happy path. Password is stored. Password is not, that does not stored. Password does not match input password, right? I mean, basically we're saying that the password's encrypted, right? I'm back. Are we testing now? We're not fully tested. We are working towards it. We do have validation. We have some repository stuff in there. So we stubbed out the components of this. We now know that we can't register an account with a duplicate email, given that our repository does return an account for that email, right? We stuck on get by email on here. What I'm trying to figure out now is how to word the version of, hey, I have an account I'm registering, I want to set a password and I want to validate the password that I store is not the password that it's a little harder, this test. Right. Anyway, let's research one thing before I do that. I need a mute button. I just realized that. Given a password in the database, ensure it is the hash of the given password. Essentially what I'm trying to do, yeah. I don't do this very often because I don't like relying upon my code to do this sort of stuff. But ultimately, I want to validate that I do not present back a is this still valid? That's 2008. No. SHA-256. Okay, it does recommend that. So from a unit testing perspective, I'm just looking it up over there. From a unit testing perspective, again, the implementation is not what I want to expose. The hash does not matter to this, right? To the person looking at the unit test, I want to say, hey, you cannot get the password out of the database, right? That's ultimately what I'm saying. And the hashing is a technical implementation in the test, but realistically just saying, hey, given a password, I don't want to be able to see that password in plain text when I ask for the account, right? So essentially this would be given a stored account, I should the password is implicit. Password should not be plain text, right? The problem is that storing is an act of the creation of the account, right? The account being created is the actual act that stores it, but I want to retrieve it. So it's not registering an account necessarily. So the test is wrong here. And this might again seem, if you're watching this and you've not done TDD, this might seem kind of silly, right? Because I know what to do. I know what I need to do. I need to write a piece of code that says, "Hey, hash the password," right? I know that part, but I want to validate that it's been done correctly, and I want to make sure that no one can reverse that or break that. And the best way of doing that is to do TDD, because I'm going to think through how I'm going to do that and how I'm going to retrieve that, and it helps me document the system as I go. This feels like there's still a comparison here somehow. There is, without doubt, there's a comparison. I need to write, okay, var account equals, you know, the result of something, right? Now maybe I need a fake here, right? Because what I'm trying to validate is that I don't need to. Right, password is stored securely, right? If I term that as password is stored securely, right? These two tests align. They knock each other out, right? Store password does not match input password, right? I'm not validating. What I'm actually saying is password is not stored in plain text, right? Or I've got to, when I'm writing the test, I want to make sure that I'm using phrases that I could use to someone else who does not know about the technical implementation and does not care about the technical implementation, right? That's what I'm trying to align to here. That is really helpful if you're looking at a set of tests and trying to describe them to a project manager. If you have to divert into how the technical implementation works, you've probably gone wrong somewhere, right? And what will happen is if you start going into technical implementation with project management, they'll use that against you at some point, right? They'll say, well, don't you just do it this way, right? Because you'll say, oh, it's just this or it's just that or whatever. So keeping this wording in a way that describes it quickly but does not go technical is kind of important at the top use cases, right? So here I'm not trying to say password is not stored in plain text. It's probably valid. The challenge is no, I'm gonna proceed with this, right? Arrange. So we have our repository, right? Our system under test. Our act is to register that. Our assert is that our password does not equal our password. Nope, not yet. We won't. Again, we don't want to rush into that implementation, right? We want to explore that naturally. That's kind of why I'm going this way right now. And that's why I just had that ding, ding, ding moment, right? I'm going to prove that we can cheat this. And we can cheat this for a long time, by the way, right? Okay, so if I run this test, strategies are called matching red. This fails because my password that I'm handing to this account equals the password that I passed in there. Will there? Is that how we're going to implement it? I don't want to. I don't want to break away from this whole I'm going to unit test it thing. And if we're going to do TDD, right, then an act of this is making sure we don't jump ahead to concluding how we're going to implement something. Because when we start to do that, we're going to write our code to deal with that conclusion. So that's all I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to stay strict to that standard right this second. It might seem kind of boring. It might seem kind of slow, but this will help firm our code, right? So here's the thing, right? We passed. It feels like this underlying service that you want to test, like the account register, only cares that if it sent off a request for a password to be hashed, this service can be tested with the it stores. Then you would mock out the password storing here, but that might be over engineering. That's my point. That is my point. Really, garbage truck. The garbage truck just went down the street, and the dogs were like, "Oh, I want to go outside and play now." He was sleeping happily. Let's give them a few more minutes. Let's see if they settle a bit. But okay, my point is here. I can cheat this test. I don't have a need to implement this hashing at this point. I have nothing that says this has to be done, right? I have no reason for writing the code. That is the point. Not that I don't need to write the code, but how are we going to hash it, right? What do we want to do? We don't necessarily want to have this class own. The account service should not own how to store the password, right? Or a wrapper adapter for the hashing function. I'll learn about these over the weekend. So to S's point of a password manager of some form, right? What do we need for a password, right? We need, I believe, we need a salt. We do not need a salt. Okay, so watch. So this gets into what are we testing and how are we testing it, right? So let me just write something. That is do I want to do that? No, I do want to do that. Do that, and that's just to be explicit. That does work. Okay. That reads a little easier. That does that. Remove unused member. Solent, come on. Wow, Solent takes a while to catch up. You could remove a whole lot of stuff. Really? That's interesting. I've never used that word there. Return value is missing. No, it's not. Is it? I don't want to do it as a method. That's what I'm trying to avoid. No, that should work. It's just a get. That's all that should need. Why does it say that's return value is missing? It's not a great form to put a method inside of a property like this, but I'll show you a different way of doing this. That's password, that value. Private. Why don't you like that? Okay, I thought I was doing that, whatever. Okay, that works. So this is an option, right? Unit testing this is not necessarily something you might want to do, but the way this will work is when I go in here, I just say that this is a password. Right. New password, sorry. And because this is a string, it will implicitly cast it to the hash, right? It will implicitly call this, which will then hash that string, right? I'm showing the design. I'm not showing that this is exactly how we'd go at it. This avoids a service. It makes a type that we can test and validate that will always take a string and you can compare it. You would never pass the encrypted string in here. So from an API perspective, this isn't necessarily the cleanest way, right? But it reads correctly, right? New password, password. So Essa just shared this, right, as an example, and essentially it's doing, you know, we take the password, we take the hash bytes, and we replace all hyphens with empty strings. Why would we do that? And then we pass in a verifying and a password, and that does the matching, right? Oh, because it will always compare, right? Because because this is done, you always have to compare them within here because you've now manipulated the output. So you always need to compare manipulated output to manipulated output, right? I get it. I wonder, is storing hashes, storing the hash with any hyphens, is that a no-no? Again, the benefit of leaning on using third-party services for this stuff is, and I would always advise that if you don't want to get into being the expert of how passwords and security work, make sure that your securities are like, if you've got a team dedicated to this stuff, right, you can dedicate development time and resources to making sure that this is done well, then yeah, do it internally. But if you can't afford to, in terms of you don't have that sort of time, use a third-party service and hope and do your homework on their security and their track record. That is really cold coffee at this point. So doing it this way, our test will still pass. I'm pretty confident. right? I don't have the reverse yet to do. The way you do the reverse is we just create a new password and compare the two values, right? So you could actually do a you can actually cheat here again and say public static implicit operator password string password, right, where you return you can either return a new password with that, so that way you can just do, well, in this case it works. That's the implicit password to string conversion, or string to password. But this way you could say, you can actually compare a string to a password because it will work. So I could do right, so that becomes pass, and then I could do if right, because it will convert this to the password implicitly now, and now I can just do equality. So from a readability perspective, this does help, right? So I can do incoming password, doing it that way. That's not really how it would be used, so I'm not sure that there's much value in doing that, because we'd be storing it as this, and then we will be we'll be checking it later. We'll be pulling it out, and then the incoming password we convert to a password and compare it password to string. So yeah. So this version is not advised because that will create a weirdness, right? Because you don't. Yeah, this comes with challenges doing it this way, because we will end up with some weird conversion stuff. Because when we pull it out of the database, it is an encrypted password. We don't want to treat it as a password. And then we're going to compare a string that we need to convert to one of these to that string. So doing any sort of comparison here is difficult. So the service method, the code that Esther just shared, right? Doing it this way is probably cleaner, because then it's more explicit, and we can have a verified password, and you just pass in the two values and say, yep, is this right? Is this right? Right. And then there is one service which you are using there. So, but we can do that without implementing this, right? We just need to do it. The way we just need to do it. The way I'm saying that is var password manager equals. It's not a manager. It's not a manager. And that's ugh. I don't like that. It's not a manager because it doesn't do anything with the passwords, right? That's why this pattern kind of works, because it is a value that it just happens to be encrypted or hashed, not encrypted. Hashed, if we're being explicit about using the right language. Yeah. Yeah, it's just that, right? That's roughly what it is. And then it converts it. As far as the mock is concerned, it's a hashing function. Yeah. There is another way of writing this. I just don't want to. Don't think it's valuable to go into doing that, because, like you said, it's a function, right? This is where object orientation and functional programming don't blend well, right? This better represents the function, right? What I would probably do here, the way around this actually would be to do public static bool compare string password string password string hash to S's style, right? And then we would do string hash of input equals that, and then we can then we'd return hash of input equals hash, right? So that would be the way around that. I think we might go with that for right this second. It's the same thing as what S has done, it's just not tested, which is the risk there. But it's a function. But it is where the two worlds do collide, because ultimately what you need there, what would actually be useful to inject into here, would be a func of that, right? It just doesn't fit well with .NET. So the way you would do that is you do public delegate bool string hash password delegate, right? String password. You then pass that in there, right? And then this would look like that. And then in here, you could do, yeah, and then you can register it in DI. String password equals new password. Oh, password. Yeah. So that matches the delegate that we've declared. You can register that in DI, and then we don't have a service, we just have a hashing function, right? That's how you would achieve the hashing function. And that's where functional programming definitely has a hand up on object-oriented, right? Because now we just have a delegate that we call. We don't care how that's implemented. We don't care what it does. It just hashes the password for us. That might be the middle ground, right? Because S is not wrong in this style, right? Having the manager, but that is oftentimes, I don't know if you've studied any of what Uncle Bob says, right? It's like sticking the word manager on things doesn't necessarily make them useful, right? And I'm not taking a dig. It's a common thing to do. I just, every time I see the word, I just think, what can we do differently? But S is not wrong in that this testing is necessary, right? So here we have a function, right, that we now have no testing around, right? So we don't know that it does what it should do. I was only half paying attention. Thought you said Uncle Bob were dissing all managers is in the manager role in a team. Management. Yeah. Oh crap! It's 9:05. Welcome back, Junicus. Fortunately, this is our end of stream. Unfortunately, because this is, unfortunately, I have that day job thing, right? You were awake. You were awake 4 hours ago, or 3 hours ago, however it was, and you still weren't in the stream. You were trolling people at 5 o'clock on Satolis's Discord. And I had proof this time. I don't know if you saw that. So let me commit this for now, right? We have breaking tests, by the way. That is not a good practice, but I want to push this code up so people can review it. And again, let's discuss, right? Go into Discord. If you have any opinions on what we've done, if you want to make an argument for a certain style or a certain pan, right? Password service maybe. Yeah. Let I don't have an issue with discussing it. I don't have an issue with talking about it. Good timing, Apex. Um, you know, it does um, it is worth discussing this and understanding your assumptions or your predilections towards naming and things like that. So, added unit tests around account registration. Discussed password hashing and tests are broken right now. But let's continue that discussion. If you feel you'd like to explore some more of this, I would love feedback on this stuff, right? I'm not needy in that I'm looking for validation with this. What I'm looking for is I want to make sure I understand how people approach software development, and I want to keep building upon that and making sure that this software is not just my software. This is shared. That's the point. Okay, so I'm going to commit and push it so it is there for everyone to look at. There is obviously failures. Again, let's not do any PRs at this point. Let's keep making progress this way. We can always come back and review. It is a community thing. This is termed Water Drink Water. It is a small application for tracking your water consumption and then building towards sharing it with others so that you can kind of have a healthy competition on or a healthy accountability, right? Not a competition on drinking water and making sure that you're hydrated throughout the day. Seemed like a reasonable app to build. We've done this before, so I've learned some lessons along the way of trying to do open source projects. So it is in the TBD Friends repo. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, your leaderboard is I achieved drinking water, right? But yeah, so that's the goal. So the code is there. The links to I'll make sure that the GitHub links are all set up properly again. But yeah, it's going well. So tomorrow, however, back to Agile project management. I am not going to do 5 days a week of this yet. I want to give us time to digest some of the concepts and discuss things. So please feel free to jump in Discord and let's continue that discussion. And yeah, Essa, we will discuss password service versus password manager, why we might do that, what the benefits are. I'd love to go into more of that to make sure we're exploring it. But yeah. So nice, Thorolf, nice. Yeah, the coding challenge stream is, I wanted to gauge interest, right? That's why it's behind a challenge. I probably will do a challenge. Actually, the 15th is coming up really quick. That's a day off, so maybe on Monday I'll actually do it anyway. But I do want to gauge interest in that sort of thing. The coding challenge last time we did the caching thing, so I'll post a link again in Discord to that and maybe come up with some options. But that's to gauge interest in, do people actually want to see me attempt one of those challenges again and go through and see how I would approach the challenge. I know that Sorav definitely appreciated that. But I am going to raid over to Apex. Again, Apex is doing some unit testing in Godot on behavior trees, so he's been working hard on that. I'm going to go there and hang out anyway as I start my work day, so I will bring you all with me. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the contribution. Thank you for the interaction. I do appreciate it, and yeah, I hope you have a great rest of the day. I'll see you all around. Take care all.